Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Unlearn with Bianca. On this podcast, we talk about all things self-healing, health, personal growth, the mind-body connection, relationships, and more. Hello, friends. I'm having a bit of a laugh to myself as I record that intro thinking, we're like 59, 60 episodes in, and Bianca, you still haven't recorded a proper introduction with music to this podcast with a jingle, but I feel like I'm at the point where I kind of like the freestyle and I kind of like the casual intro. You guys are still listening, that's all that matters. Welcome back, nice to have you here. I will do a little bit of a life update. I'm still in London. I am really enjoying it so far. I've had some really cool experiences here in the last few weeks, just being able to connect and go to events with people that I've had on my vision board, people whose books I've read. It's something I used to do quite a bit when I lived here, is really like push myself out of my comfort zone and go along to all these events that we do not have in New Zealand, that people take for granted when they're overseas. But I went to a mental fitness one with someone called Maya Raichura. Her book's amazing. It's called Visualize, which I highly recommend looking into. And that was just such a great event and very similar to what I do, essentially. So it really gave me a lot of inspiration as to where I could head if I continue on this path. On that note of book recommendations, I have to share with you guys these two amazing podcasts that I have listened to in the last few days. I don't often share podcast recommendation. I don't think I've ever shared a podcast recommendation on here, but these two were just exactly what I needed to hear at that time. So the first one is The Diary of a CEO. That's the podcast name. And it's Stephen Bartlett, who is the host. He's interviewing a neuroscientist called Tara Swart. She's amazing. And I am manifesting going to one of her events before I leave London because she is based here. But on that episode, they talk a lot around signs, connecting with loved ones on the other side, bridging the gap between science and neuroscience and spirituality, which I think is definitely in motion. It's happening more and more. And as I was listening to it, I connected to so many things that Dr. Tara was saying just about experiences that happen through grief, and it's something that I'd love to open up about more on my podcast. So I will be getting my spiritual mentor psychic on here eventually, so we can delve into that for those that are curious. And the other podcast is with Mel Robbins. It's the Mel Robbins podcast, and she interviews a guy called Jason Wilson. And the episode is called The Real Reasons Boys and Men Are Quietly Giving Up and What They Need to Hear. And I haven't finished it just yet, but I just thought, oh my gosh, this is such a good episode that all men need to listen to, or women need to listen to for the men in their life. I think it's a really important topic of discussion. Aside from just living my life over here, I've been working. I had an article from one of my previous clients on stuff this week in the news, which was amazing. She had long COVID. She was a journalist and she got her health back. So it was really cool to see that. I've also been creating a offering in the background around the nervous system and retraining the brain. It's going to be a offering that is accessible to a lot of people. So that is in the works. And, you know, my motivation sometimes dwindles, especially when I've been doing things by myself, but I've been collaborating a lot more over here, which is really cool because it definitely helps with the creativity levels as well. So enough from me, let's get into today's episode. So today we're going to talk about something that is really present in my life. I'm going to call this a real-time reflection because these are the types of episodes that are a lot more freestyle than the ones that are a bit more informative. I really want this just to flow and share with you guys some realizations that I'm having around capacity and money. So something that's been playing on my mind, a sentence that come to me. Sometimes you're not stuck, you just have a capacity issue. This is true across all areas of life, and I can definitely relate it back to the nervous system and the science. But first we've got to think about what capacity actually is. So how do I want to describe this? I would say capacity is like the cup or container that you're working from. So imagine your life is a cup and money which we'll be talking about today, love, opportunities, health, experiences, when they come into your life, they are pouring into that cup. If the cup is small, it overflows, right? Like anything, it's going to overflow and everything's going to spill over, get wasted, or it's going to feel too much. So when I'm talking about a capacity issue, I'm saying that your cup is not big enough to hold what you truly want without self-sabotaging. When you're expanding your capacity, it's about making the cup bigger and stronger so that you can actually hold more in life, hold more money, hold more experiences, hold more health. Capacity is essentially your ability to energetically and emotionally withstand the expansion, right? So I have had this experience, especially getting my health back, where I've realized I need to expand my cup. I need to expand my capacity. People will know if they've had chronic symptoms for a while that the capacity becomes really small and you start responding and reacting to every single threat that's around you. It's the same with other areas in life. Love, money. I'm starting to connect things more and more and more because actually it's my personal belief that a lot of different areas in our life are all super interconnected, and how we're showing up in each area affects the other area. So I wanted to do this on money because it's something that truthfully I have been working through, but I also think it's something that a lot of us can really relate to. And it's something that regardless of your relationship, it is what it is. It's always going to be there. We're going to have to learn how to relate to it. When I think about money and capacity, the first thing that comes to mind is when I hear about people that win the lotto, or you hear about people that inherit wealth, right? Or they experience overnight success. But then soon after that, they crash, or they spend all the money, or they're back at square one. And that's because their cup wasn't big enough. They didn't have the bandwidth to hold the money. The container was not fortified. And that building of capacity takes some time. A lot of us don't really question or ask ourselves questions around money. A lot of what we talk about when it comes to money and conversation is external. Invest in this, work harder, spend less, save more, and then you'll become successful, or then you'll become financially wealthy. And yes, all of this is true. However, I also have come to see, especially being a business owner, how quickly people can expand into more abundance, and not just business, but in life in general, and how things can really change externally when we change internally. And I used to think money was something completely external. It was luck. It was just work hard. The more work I do on myself, I'm really starting to see very clearly that money is not separate from me. It's not just this external thing that happens to me. It's also something I can create depending on what's going on internally. Now, as I said, this is a real-time reflection, so I'll give you a bit of context. My relationship with money has been a really interesting one the more I think about it, and I want to share a bit more just so because some people might relate. So some people, they get their money and it goes out just as fast as it comes in, right? We all know those people where they get a paycheck, it's gone on like the latest, I don't know, clothes, car, whatever. They are living their best lives, and I love that for them. I have been the opposite. That is my pattern. I am still, and have been, I'll say, really good at making things work, to the point where scarcity and just having enough become this feeling of safety in my nervous system. That ended up becoming my default. And I can trace back, and yes, some of the programming around money doesn't grow on trees that a lot of us had, you got to work hard for your money. That may be a part of it. But really, I think it had become a habitual pattern through my 20s. Started in university days, where a lot of us who did go to university, we were just living on the edge. I moved to London to study, and I worked full time, but the paycheck went into paying off my study, and then anything left would go straight into travel. Meaning that, again, I was living on the edge like most of us were doing overseas. When I returned to New Zealand in 2019 with the intention to start a business, I did not have a lot. In fact, I had barely any savings. I really wouldn't recommend starting a business if you're in that zone where you are really at that point, because it's actually quite a big stress on the nervous system. Looking back now, I would have definitely transitioned from full-time work a bit later on, but that's okay, we've done it. So anyway, I started a business, or I registered a company. Within a few months, within I think 6 weeks, my life got turned upside down. My mum became sick, lockdowns happened. Now I was trying to make things work and stay above water. What I realized is that mentality had actually lasted right into the recent years, which is granted because I really was staying above water for a long time, knowing that a lot of what I have done has been through hard work, through saving, through really pushing, and through taking responsibility for myself, because I had to. It meant that I got into this habitual relationship with money where I really had to question each thing I was spending to see if it was worth it, and there would be some form of getting my money's worth. That was the feedback that I started putting out into the universe, starting to question every payment, starting to think about how I could save more, how I could limit my spending. But being the type of person I am, I know that everything is interlinked. So if my money is not expanding and my money's not flowing, and I had this point like sort of last year where I was like, I need to shift some things, I started exploring this a bit more. And it still goes back to that same truth, which is you can't expand beyond what your nervous system doesn't believe is safe. Meaning, for me, I had to expand my capacity to hold more money because I had really gotten used to just living to get by. If you grew up in chaos and survival or instability, your nervous system was wired to keep you safe, not to hold abundance. So capacity, it's not something that you're born with, it's something that your system builds over time. Like I said, it can be lowered or it can be increased depending on what you're moving through. But especially when your early environment was unpredictable or you've had multiple experiences over time, your container becomes quite small. So like I said, you learn to survive with what's available. Your nervous system gets really good at detecting potential threats like, no, that money's going out, oh, there's not enough, that's going to cost too much. And that creates a response in the nervous system. But expansion, stability, and abundance, that can actually feel unsafe. So I said at the very start, the sentence that was on my mind is, you're not stuck, you really have a capacity issue. When it comes to money, it's not just the capacity to receive money, it's also the capacity to hold it, to manage it, to circulate it, and to build it. What I've learned is you can say you want more abundance, but if your actions are going against that, that is a sign of lack of capacity. Because for us to bring something in, to get more of something, our words and our actions have to be aligned. I learned this. This is 101 of, I guess you could say, manifesting, but I also learned this when I was getting my health back. Word and actions, beliefs and actions must be aligned. Let me share with you some ways to recognize if it might be a capacity issue when it comes to money. You stop spending because you don't trust that the money will circulate back around. Ding, ding, ding. That has been me. Or you overspend. For example, you get a tax refund lump sum of money back and you go out and blow it straight away because it feels better just to not have it sitting in there. I'm sure lots of people can relate to that one. Another capacity issue could be that you undercharge if you're a service because you think charging more will repel people. It could be that there is an opportunity for more money to be made that's in front of you, but you procrastinate when you really think about what you need to do. Another sign is having this ongoing dialogue or belief running of, if I have more money, something else will give, or I'll lose something else. And that could be time in a relationship. It could be freedom because it means more responsibility. So these sorts of like beliefs that can be running in the background can definitely limit our capacity. And finally, a few more. Maybe you just avoid all financial numbers altogether. I've definitely been there. Or you freeze when you have to make a financial decision and then you just end up either mulling over it for ages or just doing nothing. So these are signs that your cup is small and it can be expanded. But you can see how subconsciously, like you can say, I want more money, but if these actions are not aligning with that, then we're going to be repelling opportunities that come towards us. And I had to get really honest with myself and say, like, if you say that abundance is coming and you deserve more money, more abundance, more financial freedom, you say you trust, but you're micromanaging every outcome and making decisions out of fear, you are not in alignment and things will not flow towards you. I really had to recognize that my words and my actions weren't aligning and realize that, again, like anything, when we shift the internal, the external around us changes. So just some ways that I noticed my capacity was small and it needed expanding. And some of these will only be relevant to like being in business, but you might relate to some of them. So not investing in support out of this fear and a scarcity mindset that I wouldn't be able to make the investment back in the long run. But as I quickly learn in business that you have to invest in the business to be able to grow the business. So that was definitely one, like not wanting to spend money into areas where I couldn't see a tangible result yet. It's a real trust one. I realized my capacity was small for receiving abundance when I was stopping myself from doing things that made me feel good. I've always been someone who has put any money I had into my health and well-being and looking after myself. But when things get really tight, that stuff gets put on the back burner, right? But even things like buying the cheaper version of something just to save a few dollars, I started doing that consistently. And it didn't make me feel good. Remember, when we do those small things for ourselves, whether it be buying good quality food, that makes us feel good. Therefore, when we're putting out good energy, more good things come back. So I stopped doing all these little things out of scarcity, thinking I'll just save money in this area. Of course, there are seasons for doing that, but when you stop yourself from doing all the little things that feel good, then you're in a scarcity mindset. I was claiming I was ready for more wealth, but I wasn't investing in things that were truly nourishing me, that made me feel good. Other signs of low capacity was just noticing in my language when I wouldn't be grateful for things that were coming in and I'd be more concerned about my outgoings. So where my focus was, that was a big sign, especially in language as well. Those generalizing statements of every week there's a new bill coming through, or every week there's something new to pay for. You know, those sweeping generalized statements, they are also very clear signs for me when I'm dipping into a mindset that's not useful. Not having clarity around what money would actually bring me, like not sitting down and thinking, when I actually have this amount, what is that going to bring me that's any different? What am I actually going to use that money for? And really starting to have a plan, not just thinking about it blindly. And two more things that I know people can relate to: not paying bills immediately as they would come up, because it's just that kind of like, I'll deal with that later, not tidying things up. And one more that's a bit more business orientated is not wanting to invest in the systems that I know are important for more wealth and abundance and clients in a business. Trying to cut corners and, do things that actually take more time rather than just investing in systems. Actually thinking about, like, what does that person have, that future version of me who's holding more? Does she have systems? Yes, she does. So actually taking that step forward, whereas I was resisting that. They were all signs that I needed to do some work around my capacity. So what do you need to do when you are needing to build more capacity to hold wealth? I'll share with you some things that I've been focusing on. Anything like retraining the brain, like retraining the nervous system, it is a training. It happens in small doses over time. You're not going to go to the gym and just pick up the heaviest dumbbell and start working with that. You're going to have to put in the work before you get to the next level and the next level until you can carry the heavy dumbbell. It's the same with this. When we're building capacity, think of it as like expanding our cup out. It just happens with time. So, like anything, the foundation is our nervous system. It is the physical container for your energy. If you're constantly in fight or flight, you will sabotage abundance because it feels unsafe in your body. Your body is more used to being on alert, it's more used to chaos. So, anything we can do to teach safety back into that nervous system, I've definitely been doing my breathing in the morning, stretching, really opening up the body. For some people, it's like cold plunging, running, eating a healthy breakfast, having a healthy routine in the morning, practicing intentional rest. All of these things are expanding our physical capacity. So teaching your system that expanding and growth doesn't mean danger. That's really important. I've also been utilizing my lightning process brain retraining tools to really get into a state of trust, to really visualize the future version of me that is holding more wealth, that feels comfortable and safe with abundance, really conditioning my body each morning to be in that feeling. It takes about 5 minutes. I'm visualizing the version of me who has this amount of money coming into my bank balance. I'm visualizing me saying yes to some new study because I feel comfortable with it in my body. I'm visualizing myself paying someone something substantial and then getting back on with my day rather than looping into fear. So doing this consistently is teaching my brain, because the brain doesn't know the difference between what is real and not real, that version is safe, and that starts to expand my capacity, and that really starts to rub off in the choices that I'm making with money day to day. I also think it's really important that we all have a practice of gratitude, whether it be before we go to bed, saying what we're grateful for, getting up, saying what we're grateful for. And I've always done this generally speaking, but I've really started to add a bit extra on. I've started to take time to connect into gratitude for things that have been abundant in my day, or things that I've received from other people that I wouldn't have noticed otherwise, to teach my reticular activating system to look for abundance, and also train my system that it's safe to receive. For example, I'll say, I'm so grateful that my friend Sarah bought me a coffee. I'm so grateful that I have a week's rent for free because I'm house sitting. All these little things, which, sometimes don't even feel like a big thing. If we actually draw on them and sit with them and get into that feeling of gratitude, that completely changes our energy out of fear into trust and openness. So I've also been adding that, and it's been a really nice thing, because I've realized that actually there are so many places where I am so abundant when it comes to finances. And I've received so much, especially overseas. There's been like a lot of things that have happened that I'm like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't have noticed that before, like a little upgrade, or free coffees, all these things. It's actually not taking them for granted, because otherwise it's going to feel like there's never enough. And on that receiving conversation, we can practice that beyond little money gestures. We can practice feeling safe to receive in so many ways that will also impact our abundance. So if your default is to reject help or dismiss compliments or just do it all yourself, you're not in a position to receive more. So you want to meet the universe halfway. Practice saying yes to small offers of help, and watch how your cup gets bigger and learns how to hold more things without the shame and the guilt and unworthiness. This is really important. Another thing we can do to expand our abundance financial capacity is ask ourselves about our money stories. Getting curious about where am I judging someone else for having abundance? What is behind that? Where am I finding myself talking about, oh, there's just not enough this week, or I can't do that, it must be nice to have more money? Where are you finding yourself doing that in the week? And is it getting you this sense of connection? Because I've definitely reflected on that and realized, there were times where I was connecting out of that scarcity mindset. So we need to pick up on that and start to question those stories or start to question those habits to really, it sounds weird, but to see what you're getting out of it, because usually it's a feeling of connection. Or if we're judging someone, usually it's something that we really deeply desire, or perhaps it's reflecting a belief that we learned growing up, like rich people were bad people. Starting to really get curious about our stories, where they come from. And just by doing this, we're making some more space. A few more things. Strengthening your boundaries. Stop leaking energy and start to be honest with others about what you have space for and what you don't feel like you have the energy or bandwidth for. We can obviously spend more money when we are doing things that we don't want to do because we've said yes to something. So in that capacity, yes, but also just in general, really tightening up on our energy, because what I find is if our energy is everywhere, we tend to be overdoing things, and overdoing is a trauma response. Often things flow when we simplify, not when we're overworking, not when we're stressing. I'm really learning not to wait for the opportunity to suddenly become the person who can sustain financial abundance. I have to, and we have to train like it's already here. Again, we're stepping into that version of that person that already has it. For me, that looks like I said, I used to not tend to want to look at my bank account so much. So it's like managing my finances and my budget, making choices that would reflect the next version of me and how I want to spend my money, pouring into my health and well-being where I can. It's making choices that align with the person that we're becoming, but not overdoing everything to the point that there's no room to look after yourself. And that leads into the next point around expanding your capacity when it comes to holding abundance and money. And that is to circulate your money. Circulation, rather than holding, circulation is showing that you have trust, that you will always be taken care of. It's not about reckless spending, but it's about investing in areas that are important to you and investing in things that actually matter. Are you investing in materialistic items for a quick hit, or are you going to invest in things like investments, long-term investments, or study, or nourishing your body better, or something that actually will give back to you long-term? That's also something to really think about. And finally, the last one, something that really builds your capacity, generally speaking, especially relevant for business owners, is to risk being seen more. Risk being seen in your services, your offerings. You have to risk being seen to be supported. And when you are being seen, that, if you're a business owner, is often when you get paid. I'm still learning that you don't need to grind harder for money. And I really, truly believe this. I might not be personally at the point where that has shown up in my reality yet, but I know it to be true. And things are shifting in the way that we're doing things. Things are shifting in the way that we want to operate. I've definitely seen it with a lot of females and how we want to show up. It's not to say that we shouldn't be working hard. I definitely think we need to work smart, but a lot of receiving more does come down to energetics, and it comes down to understanding our beliefs, understanding where our actions and our words align. And hopefully this episode I'll look back on and I'll be like, it's proof. It's proof that when you're consistent, this stuff actually works. Increasing your capacity to really hold the blessings that are actually already happening around you and that are coming in. So my confronting question that I'll leave with you guys today is, you say you want more abundance, but are you really available for more? Okay. Can you really hold it? Can your cup hold it? Is your capacity big enough to hold it? And if you really think about it and you're like, oh, there are some loopholes there, then I encourage you to go back over this episode, think about some of the things that I'm saying. If you're a previous Lightning Process client and you're having these things pop up as well, do get back in touch with me so I can teach you how to apply the tools in this scenario. I know we are living in some really challenging economical times, but I truly believe that we are all deserving of more abundance, more choices. And yes, it would be lovely if it was all on a silver platter, which for most people is not the case. But we can look at what is going on internally and our blocks, remove our blocks to make sure we're in a space where we can hold and appreciate things that are coming our way and just be open to opportunities that are coming our way with abundance in many areas. So I hope you guys have enjoyed today's episode and it's given you a lot of things to think about. As always, I love hearing from you. I love hearing what you've taken away, whether you agree, whether you disagree, start the conversation. I'm here for it all. And I've got a few interviews coming up here in the UK in the next few weeks. So there'll be some interviews to look forward to over the coming weeks and then back on my solo episodes. Have a beautiful week and I will see you on the next episode.